find myself about 15 or so miles east of Bangor, Maine, at a popular day hike known locally as Chick Hill. It's about a 2.7 mile loop trail with about 1,100 or so feet of elevation, and if I don't stop too long for breaks, I can usually do it in an hour and 15 or so. You come up to the first little summit, and then there's another one up ahead. I'll throw some pictures in to show you. It is a beautiful day in Maine today, very unseasonably warm. It is, however, a somber day as I hike. A good trail friend of mine, Zeke Morse, his funeral is today in North Carolina, and I'm sad that I can't attend, but I'm definitely thinking about him and his family, his wife Shelley, and his 3 daughters and all his grandkids. I found out earlier this week that he had passed away. Very sad news. Something that came out of the sadness, I think, for me, is it really confirmed the strengths of these short relationships that you have on the trail. I think these relationships and bonds that you make are obviously centered around the main goal that everyone has out there, getting to Katahdin. But I think it's even more than that. It's connections you have either through talking about family or where your interest lies, your work, your past work, or what you maybe want to do in the future. And as I've said before, a lot of these conversations, I'd say almost all of them actually, are filled with an honesty that you just don't get in the, I'm not going to call it the real world, but in the, in regular life when you get back. There's, not that people lie all the time, but there's just an honesty on the trail that people accept, and probably a little bit brought on by the anonymity that trail names have, right? I mean, there's many people I met, I don't have a clue what their first name is, but they were probably more honest to me and myself to them than most of the people that I come in contact with in my life. So it is a very sad day. Zeke and I met. I had run into him a few times in just before Virginia, and then ran into him a few times in Southern Virginia. And I think it was the day I was in Branchville, New Jersey. I had hiked late out of town. A motel reservation had fallen through, which ended up being probably the best thing that happened to me on my trip for a lot of reasons that I can't go into detail now. But I hiked well after 5 o'clock that night, and I ended up camping at a shelter, or tenting beside a shelter, and Zeke and Solo, who I actually hiked a lot with in Maine, New Hampshire, they were both there. And from that point that night, I looked back at my far out check-ins the other night, and Zeke and I hiked about a good 150 miles together, and a lot of that time we did hike together. And sometimes you tend to be a little opposite, you'll hike alone and kind of leapfrog each other, but he and I did spend, I think it was probably due to like the terrain, and there was a lot of stops that we made at stores and things like that, but had a lot of great conversations, and did a zero together near West Point at Fort Montgomery, in Fort Montgomery, New York. Did a zero together and had a lot of meals. And he had recently retired about a year ago or so from police department. He was a officer, a detective, and he put in 27 years, which I could tell he was very passionate about that. Actually, during his hike, even in retirement, he was serving the public. He went back and testified on a case that he had broken some time ago. Flew home, testified, came back and got back on the trail. And obviously talked about his family a lot, his 3 daughters and 2 of his son-in-laws and his grandkids for sure. So we definitely had that in common, that family aspect, which I enjoy talking about all the time. And so it was a really big shock to me when I heard of his passing. Young man, early 50s, younger than me. I know he had some plans for the future and even the near future. I had texted with him about 3 weeks ago. So I was really shocked, as I said, when I heard the news from another friend I had met on the trail. So I'm really thinking of his family today as they go through the process of grieving, and starts today with his funeral, I guess. But I'm going to link, there is a scholarship fund in his name to a couple groups that he was passionate about. I'm going to link the GoFundMe link in the body of this video. You know, if you care to or wish to donate, that'd be great. If not, no worries. But I'm going to put it out there with a copy of his obituary as well. And I'll be thinking of him today as I do the rest of this hike, for sure. Zeke, rest in peace. And, I don't think it'll be tough to hike again, especially on the AT. And parts of it I do up here without definitely remembering him, along with, you know, a good group of people that I hiked with during my AT adventure. Hope everyone has a great day. Enjoy the weekend wherever you are. See ya. One funny story from Zeke and I's time together was we had hiked near to Fort Montgomery. We were in the Bear Mountain, New York area, and we had a reservation for the next night at a little tiny motel, but we didn't have anywhere to stay that night, and it was a pretty urban area compared to what we'd been in. No really woods or anything to stealth camp in. So we went down and we hung out by the Hudson River for 2 or 3 hours watching some people fish and just filling ourselves with ice creams and soda. And we waited till it got dark and ended up, there was a little pavilion from days gone by. It wasn't in great shape, but we knew it would keep us dry if it rained, so we set up our tents under the pavilion right on the Hudson River. I would say in less than a legal campsite, but it was great until that night when the freight trains would roll through. And I think we had it timed down to them coming through about every 3 hours, and where we had our tents set up, it was really near the railroad track. And when that freight train came through it, I think the last one at 4 a.m, pitch dark, it was so loud. And it's funny now to think about it, but it wasn't then. It was actually kind of scary because it was probably only about maybe 60 feet, maybe 50 feet from our tent. And it was very loud. I think I did a short of that. I'll put a link to that in the body of my video too. It was actually one of the really funny times that I remember hiking with Zeke. And there was another time, well, right around that same, I think the next day when we got up, we had to hike a little bit. It was basically a 0 up to Fort Montgomery. But we got up and it started raining, so we kind of ducked under a little pavilion to wait for it to pass, and we found a ice cream vending machine, which if you followed me at all this year, you know I love ice cream. Anyway, it was an ice cream vending machine that you could use your phone to pay for, because I never carried cash or was always out. And actually, Zeke saved me a couple times. We were in Unionville, New York, and we hiked off trail into this town, Unionville, New York, and it's an awesome general store there, but they only took cash, and I had like $2 and I was starving, so I Venmo'd Zeke because he had a bunch of cash and he gave me $20. Well, his Venmo account was basically his wife Shelly, and all of a sudden I Venmo him, and Shelly texts him, why did you just get $20 from someone for pizza? So she thought that was funny, I think. And I think I Venmo'd him one more time that day to get a little more cash too, because we sat there for about 4 hours. It was during the really, really hot time of the through hike, and we waited till about, 4 or 5 that night to head out of there. And it was a beautiful night. We chatted the whole way together to the campsite, hit a little trail magic on the way out of town, and walked through this beautiful like preserve, nature preserve, where you could tell a lot of people hiked it. Very nice. It was flat. It was a great walk with the sun going down. I remember I took this picture right here of Zeke. We had stopped for just a little break. We thought it was pretty cool that there were chairs out there we could break at, but I'll definitely always remember that picture. But some great stories that I recall.